Welcome to the Journey to Wellness podcast, sponsored by the Essential Wellness Society and Healing Wheel Holistic. I'm Melissa Stonehill-Kyam, and I will be your host. With over 40 years' experience in the health and fitness industry, I am ready to dive in to some of the most conflicting topics we have regards to health today. Let's go. Welcome to the Journey to Wellness podcast. I am podcasting today from the wonderful Treehouse Cafe in Colorado Springs, and I am so honored today to sit with one of my closest friends, real soul brother, John Thunderheart Robinson. And it's funny because I have his business card right here, and before I even read off your business card, I'd rather just say how I experience what you do and what you contribute to the community here. So I'm going to dive right in, and what I'm going to say is John is a healer extraordinaire, and I've experienced many different people, many different healers, many different modalities throughout the years. You name it. Tarot cards, astrology, Reiki tables, all kinds of stuff. Sound baths, this, that, the other thing. And I came to a point in my life where I started to really allow myself to let go and travel and experience all these different things that happen outside of this dimension. And I started to become more picky as to who I allow to take me on those journeys. Just like if you were to pick a dentist or a doctor or anything else, you're gonna look at reviews and you're gonna pick somebody really specific. So when you're working with the spiritual body and the energy field, I feel like we need to give it as much respect as if we were going in to have plastic surgery. And you could either have somebody that's going to do a good job or someone that's going to completely disfigure you. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it's exactly what I meant to say. So I will tell you this before you get started and introduce yourself, because this business card is really long.
Lots of information.
I don't trust that many people, John. And when I come to you and I'm on your table, I know that I'm going to fly. I'm going to go somewhere, but I'm safe. I'm in a safe place, in a safe space with a practitioner that has a level of skill that's really above and beyond. So, and a lot of times people can't work on their friends because they know them too well, they say, right? But I feel like it's almost the opposite, is that when you really trust somebody, you can release more. So I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And you have an opportunity now to, speak for 40 minutes all about you and your practice. But I wanted to introduce you in that way, personal experience. And then I'm going to ask you the question of really, who is John Thunderheart? How did you become John Thunderheart? How did you become somebody that's actually pioneered this energetic medicine here in Colorado Springs? You were one of the first here ever. How did that journey begin?
Oh.
There you go.
That's a tough one.
Okay.
I guess in many ways it started when I was little. I was always very, how would you say, aware of my own body. And I was very connected spiritually. And I wasn't a perfect child by any means. And I literally did things that, let's just say, weren't really too good. But when I did some of these things that may have harmed other people, I recognized it within myself. I felt a sorrow, an emotional pain that and an insight that what my actions were doing were hurting other people. And I didn't want that. I wanted to help people, even as a little kid. I was always one to go over and walk my friend's grandmother around the block to visit people
So how
and
old
stuff
were you
like that.
when you were experiencing this?
I'd say probably 4 or 5 years old.
It's really
I've
young.
always been spiritual. We were a very religious family, and I mean, that was a good root, but I also didn't believe in all the, what I was being taught, which even at that age, I considered that's a man-made thing as opposed to a spiritual, a God thing.
Well, I know you have a very deep godly connection. And so what I think I'm hearing you say is that you felt deeply rooted for a higher purpose, and even as basically right out of being a toddler, like you felt this need and kind of redefining the structure of your experience with spirituality.
I guess that's pretty accurate. A lot of times when I was growing up, I wanted to be accepted with all the other guys and stuff like that, and the crew in the neighborhood. And I never was completely. I wasn't believed in a lot with some of the other people that even though I was fairly athletic, I was always kind of felt like I was on the periphery. So I would do things in my life to try to be part of the crowd and be accepted, and that's where some of the stuff I did wasn't the best in all the world.
Well,
But
when you say part of the crowd and be accepted, you grew up in what part of New York?
Long Island.
Long Island. Okay.
Yeah. And, we lived in a pretty good neighborhood and everything else, but it was surrounded by not so good areas, really close. But, we all strive to be accepted by your peers and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I was more or less in my late teens and early 20s that I realized that I wouldn't be accepted the way I am. I just had to be me. I just had to, those who accepted me were going to, those who weren't are not. And in a sense, that brought a sense of peace, but it also brought an energy of loneliness that you can have from time to time. But it was like, do I conform to what society wants me to be, and my friends want me to be, or acquaintances want me to be, or just be me?
Now, you were raised in a law enforcement family?
No.
Or how does that connection go?
A grandfather that I never knew was a New York City policeman. He passed away in like 1932. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not that old.
Okay.
But it was something that it was something I wanted to do. And,
Well, some people don't know what it is that something was that you wanted to do.
well, because you mentioned the policeman, there was part of me who wanted to experience that.
Yeah.
But I'm a person who believes that we came down here on earth to experience life, right? Not just to go, like my parents said, get a good job and stay with it so you can retire.
Right.
And even if you hate it, if it pays well, stick with it. I could never do that. Is once my spirit started feeling pressed upon and closed in, and I wasn't enjoying my life, and I was going home exhausted and unhappy and waking up exhausted and unhappy because I'm doing things that doesn't make my heart sing.
So at what age did you go into law enforcement?
41.
Okay, so you became a cop when you were 41.
Yeah.
And when did you, I also know that you have mastered some martial arts. When did you start that?
I started that secretively at about 12.
Wow, secretively.
Yes, I looked at my dad's signatures,
Oh, geez.
and I kept practicing it, and I signed my own release form and went and took martial arts with my friend and his dad.
That's nice.
And but my parents never knew it until I was close to 30.
Well, if a kid's going to be rebellious, you know, and at least he's not you didn't forge his name to go get a tattoo. You forged his name to study martial arts. And what particular form did you like?
Primarily, it was Japanese jiu-jitsu, but I've studied many different styles of
I
martial
see that
arts.
as a really deep spiritual path.
It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. It taught me also the power of the mind. But when you learn to harness the power of the mind with the power of the soul, the spirit, you can do things that are beyond belief. You know, goes beyond sometimes the laws of physics. If you ever watch, say, the Chinese martial arts, the Shaolin monks.
I'm fascinated by it.
You know, they had I was actually telling this story to someone just the other day. They had a spear, and the spear tip was literally razor sharp. I mean, they could poke paper and just go right through it. You know, it was something you'd never believe that a person could put against their throat,
Right.
and then walk in and bend the pole of the shaft of the spear. It literally, you know, it's like that. They had to switch it. That's what I was saying in my mind. They had to switch this. What they did was, this person, when as soon as they took it off his throat, I mean, he literally bent the shaft almost like a U, and then stepped away from it, and then took it and pierced something right. It was like, how can that be possible? Right. I watched a person literally climb a stairs of samurai swords.
Oh my God.
And bare feet, right? Beforehand, he dropped like fruit and vegetables on top of it, and they just parted. And he goes and climbs this thing. That goes beyond reasoning.
Totally. It's like goes beyond physics.
Yeah, you would think that's not possible. When you're stepping on something, you're pressing weight. That should have literally pierced. He climbs right up it. And we all have the power.
Which reminds me of this. So, you know, biblically, it said that Jesus walked on water, right? Well, I don't find that hard to believe. No, I mean, you saw someone walk samurai swords, and you've seen people defy the laws of physics. And I think when you're really high in your practice and you can connect, you can defy the laws of physics.
You know, and I'll agree with that, and at the same time, I'll disagree with it for the fact that I went to a seminar one time, and, you know, it was we did fire walking, you know, I'm part of it.
Ouch.
And it was 60 feet long. Not, you know, a lot of them did 6 feet, 6 to 8 feet, and they'd walk across the coast. This was 60 feet. Now, none of these people had ever done that before, nor had I. And it's the power of intention. It's setting the goal in your mind and believing the goal, and not, you know, once you go into the fear element, that's when things fall apart. You can be nervous, you can be worried, but when you go into that fear, that's when things go bad. So when you have, like what we did is they said, picture your goal. What do you want to achieve? And start your walk and only have your goal in mind, not the fire below you. And they literally took a temperature of the walk, of the fire pit that was 60 feet long, 3,000 degrees. Only one person suffered any burns at all. And one of the people that made this walk had cerebral palsy and foot dragged. And he dragged his foot. He was being supported on the side, and his foot dragged throughout 60 feet, right? No burns. Now, a lot of people, when they've done scientific studies, they say there's a vapor barrier that's formed between the skin and the ground and whatever surface there is, right? A bit of sweat, I guess you can call it. But it's minute. But they say when you're walking and you go constantly, that is protecting your feet. I'll say, yeah, maybe there's 10% truth in that.
That kind of heat, though, you would think your skin would melt off your bone before you even got to your foot on the thing.
Exactly. So that, to me, that, you know, the idea of having a little vapor barrier was not, it didn't make sense to me. because it would have evaporated before you even
Right.
touched down.
So just
with
as
that
a
heat.
disclaimer, don't try this at home.
Yeah, don't try this at home. Yeah.
But
But it-
disclaimer, you have to be prepared for this.
You have to mentally be prepared for this. So when you're mentally prepared, you can do amazing things. But when you combine both the mental and the spiritual aspect, then you do miracles.
That's a good bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I
And
like that.
and remember, we're in a human body. So we're going to go, our emotions are going to go up and down and everything. So if you're going to attempt something and you're emotionally compromised, don't expect to have the results that you're hoping for. You have to center yourself. You have to ground yourself. You have to, like you did before here, you took a moment and you took a deep breath and you centered yourself.
Right.
And that's one of the most important things. We sometimes act before we're centered.
Right.
Right? Grounding is so important for almost everything that we do
Right.
before we begin.
100%. I only wish that this would be conveyed now some as a practice to do in schools for kids where, before they start their day to have some level of groundedness, because think about the average American child who's, quick, the alarm went off, let's go. And the parents are trying to get to work and the kids, okay, get your dress, come on. They're grabbing the toast out the door and
running
into the car and then into the school, and the bell is ringing and they're in their seat and everyone pull out your homework. And I feel like that we set ourselves up societally, we set ourselves up to be in that fight or flight mode all the time.
Yes.
And it starts when we're little children.
Yeah. And I feel that's by design.
By design, societally
Yes.
or universally?
Good. That's a really good. It's both. Especially in Western culture, because of control. To sell a product, to buy something, they want you to do this. You're kept from being centered, kept from being questioned because your mind is being occupied by these other stimuli, I'll call it.
It's so interesting when you say that, because when I was raising kids, what was most important to me, I knew they'd do okay in school, was all the extracurricular stuff we did, the dance classes, the arts, the martial arts, all that. I felt like that was going to give them the tools for life more than anything, and allow them to center, through those mediums. But so here's a question I have. Like you got into the energy field and energetic healing practices before it was such a buzzword. Like right now, I was just talking to Drew before we went live, and I was saying how, when I started studying sound and was doing sound healing and working with tuning forks and things like that, I was, at the time, it wasn't a saturated market. And first time I met you, I went to one of your sound baths, which was not just like a sound bath, there's a lot of chanting that was going on. But now, oh my God, it's a flooded market. Everybody's doing it. So you were doing this so long ago. Who did you meet, or how did you get inspired, or what was that aha moment where you're like, I'm going to do this?
That's when we try to flow with life, and when opportunities that keep repeating show up, and sometimes people badgering you, that's the universe knocking on the door and say, investigate this, don't be afraid of it. And if you are afraid of it, use it as the motivator to explore it and see whether you're capable or want to experience. Like getting into music, I had no musical abilities at all. I took cornet lessons when I was a kid. I tried guitar. I tried multiple things, even up into college, piano, and I was really horrible. I mean, I could not find my way. I didn't really have rhythm. I had no voice. My singing voice was, this is what I tell people, and to me it was the truth. My singing voice, my low, my high, and my medium, and my high, was the doctor saying, stick out your tongue and putting the tongue depressor on and say, ah. Mm-hmm. There's no change in pitch. It was off key. That was my voice, my singing voice. No instruments was I able to play that sounded good. Teachers would leave the room, say, try this, I'll come back in a half hour. That's how bad I was. And if, they'd have to have plexiglass, otherwise I'd break it.
It's so different from the experience now, because I see you in the live performance and you got the Shruti box with your foot, you're doing some bowls and playing the flute and shaking rattles and this and that. So it's like almost that one-man band.
Yeah, they call me the octopus.
You're just moving, the legs, but everything's moving. So, and the voice, the toning, your toning is phenomenal. It's great, it's soothing.
Well, when I was doing just meditations, I would play music in the background and do a guided meditation. And then I had a friend of mine who used to come to it. He became a friend. He came to the meditations and we became friends. Mm-hmm. And he played the Didgeridoo. Mm. And he was taking lessons for quite a while in Denver from an aboriginal who spent 6 months in the U.S. and 6 months back in Australia. And he kept saying, Ash wants to meet you, Ash wants to meet you. Because what I did was I was a deputy at the time, rent a church, and I would bring in different musicians, eclectic. I brought in a Tibetan throat singer, rented Unity Church, and I'd advertise it, and we do that. And he heard that I did these things, so I invited him down, and I rented the church, and I advertised it, and he did his thing, and he decided that he was going to do some healing work and wanted to teach some classes, and he asked if he could use my house. And I said, sure. So in the backyard, he gave flute classes, which I didn't take. I didn't take the flute class, but I did take the Didge class. And I was absolutely horrible in the beginning with it, but he said everybody starts this way. And I ended up buying one of the Didges that he had. I had literally a week before bought a flute, and I just hung it on a, mantle.
So let me just ask you real quick, so we could segue into what's in front of you. Mm-hmm. The original question was, you said, you rented the church and did meditation. What was the aha moment of like, I need to do this?
Well, I was going to get into that. That was actually.
Forgive me.
Yeah, I was just going to go in.
Okay.
When I took the Didge class, even though I was, horrible at it, I made fart noises. I felt a rush of energy come up through the earth, through my whole body, through every cell, every atom.
Through that instrument.
Through that instrument, that was the first time I felt such a tremendously deep connection with the earth. And that's why I bought the Didge, even though I couldn't really play it. Now, previously, I had started a drum circle in 2008 after having an experience with the drum up in British Columbia. And the same energy came through me with the drum, and I started the full moon drumming at Garden of the Gods. And at that time, I did the equinoxes, the solstices, the new moon, the full moon. I did all these things. And I didn't know how to play the drum, except when that beat started going, all of a sudden, I was channeling drumming. And I could hit the drum, and people go, wow, you were professional? But once that was all gone, I was not that good at it. And what that was doing was teaching me to listen, not with the ears, but with energy, to sense the energy and allow the energy to flow through me. That's what I do with my healing work. That's what I do with my readings. That's what I do with my music. is I become the instrument. I let spirit play me as opposed to me playing these things and doing these things.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's how I learned how to play the flute.
This is a really beautiful one.
Oh, thanks.
Who made that?
This is from High Spirits.
Wow, that's cool. So this, you can't, I want you to be able to see that. So this is turquoise?
Yes.
And this is hand carved? It's really beautiful.
Well, yeah, they probably...
And on the back, you have a little snake, right? Is that a little snake?
Where? That's actually a natural knot of the wood.
With this little turquoise that they filled it with? Almost, to me, it looks like a little snake.
I never really looked at it, to be quite honest with you, because this is a flute that I don't play often. Because I have 26 other flutes.
Would you guys say that's a snake? Look like a snake to you? No? Oh, I say it's a snake.
Yeah, well.
Awesome. So why'd you bring this one today?
Because the other ones are in my case, and this one is,
Calling
downstairs.
you today?
Was downstairs. Yeah, it's downstairs.
Like,
I have it on
on
the arms of St. Francis, a statue, and he holds the flute.
Pick me.
So I brought this one down. They make really nice sounding flutes.
You have
High
a
Spirits.
lot of them.
Yeah,
How
I've
many
got
you got?
26.
20. That's a good number.
Yeah. So playing the flute, I started going in a group with my friend who brought me to the Aboriginal when I started being able to actually play it. At the drum circle, I'd start the circle and then I'd bring the didge out to practice so no one would hear me. And so I would get used to being in front of people with instruments, because I am really at heart a very shy person. And I had to really put myself in situations to be able to speak in public.
I haven't experienced that side of you, but...
No, well, it's
I'll take your
there.
word for
It's there. I had to work through that so that I could do these things, because I kept having dreams throughout my life that I'd be in front of a lot of people and, like on stage giving talks and, doing something like this. How am I going to do that if I don't push past that?
Right.
And it doesn't mean I don't sometimes have the fear of being in front of those people. I look at it and I say, why am I here?
Right.
What
am I bringing?
What can I share? What can I learn? It's not about me teaching all the time and passing on what I've learned. It's about also listening to the people, what they've learned.
Whenever I'm like in front of a crowd, I always think, how do I want to show up? How am I showing up? And that always, it kind of changes how you want to show up, and then you show up like that.
Like me, I try to just show up. I don't, like when I come on this, I don't do any prep.
Right.
When I do my meditation, I become the instrument. Whatever is supposed to come through. Every time I pre-planned something, it never turned out. It always diverted into what it's supposed to be as opposed to what I think it should be.
But what I think when you ask that question, or for me when I ask that question, it gives me the ability to read the people that are there and kind of feel into like, what is it that they need? What can I give? What can I give to them today? That's sort of where I go. Everybody's different.
Yeah. Well, we all have our own process, and none of them's right for everybody else. I think what you bring out is you bring out a lot of information for people. You also bring out a lot of questions, right, that they have to ask themselves.
Yeah, I do like that. I do love the whole process of inquiry.
Well, it's important.
Yeah.
The more we communicate, the more we speak, and the more we give our ideas, that's how we grow.
Well, the self-inquiry, too, is the process of, like, slowing down, that pause.
You have to slow down.
Yeah.
And you have to ground. In order to absorb it, you have to ground yourself. You have to take the quiet time. What Spirit's been telling me and a lot of the clients that I have is, when are you taking time for yourself to just be?
Right, exactly.
Literally, just sit on the back porch, sit on the front stoop,
right.
Have a cup of tea or coffee or even a beer and sip it, not guzzle it, and just look at what's going on around you and feeling it, and allowing the questions to pop up, and allow the answers to flow through, or allow yourself to mourn, allow yourself to giggle. You know what I mean? It's so
this
important.
came up for me recently. You know, we create and curate so many different retreats, and when I thought about like what does it look like to bring a group of people to a space where you're just being, and that's where Alaska came into my download of like, this is a place where you don't have to do anything but observe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because so many people want to be like led, like, here, we're going here because we're going to do this, and you're going to walk away with that.
Right.
And I think it's really equally important to create a container for people to just be, like you said. And for some people, that's scary. I've heard people say, I don't know how to be with myself. I need to be busy all the time. I don't know what that looks like. But I think this is the message. This is the message going into 2025 as well, of this. I don't want to use the word surrender, because the surrender sometimes implicates a weakness, where this isn't really about weakness. It's really about strength. And the strength of a tree, for instance. I was in this meditation in the park, and Russ was doing the Qigong, and I looked up at the tree, and it was just beautiful. Right before, it was the beginning of fall, and I felt like the tree was saying to me, like, just be. We don't care how big our fruit is. We're still gonna grow our leaves and shed our leaves and, exist. And I was just thinking about that, and in nature we can see this happening.
Yeah.
They just do what they do.
Yeah, and that's a great message, because we're always worried about how we're going to be perceived and everything, instead of just being who we are. Right?
We're always worried about
now,
how big our apples are going to be and what our fruit's going to taste like.
Exactly.
Instead of just producing.
Yeah. We get so caught up in our self-judgments, and I mean, I'm just as guilty as everybody else with that. We're generally our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes just loving that part that you're not wanting to love or think you shouldn't love.
Right. That's the whole shadow work stuff.
Yeah. And
is know that it exists and lean into it, because it's there when you need it.
the shadow hides many gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you're talking in, say, the shamanic work and so forth, we go into the dream time, we go into the void a lot of times when we're doing our work. And a lot of people, which generally is thought of as like complete darkness, the void. There's nothing. What it is that's where creation came from. Because like in the biblical sense, then they said, and then there was light.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because once you go into the darkness, which is not evil, you are actually going in there. It has all the ingredients for the cake of your life. We're afraid to go in and take it.
Right.
Like when I'm looking to manifest something, I use the example of, say, a chocolate cake. I want to manifest the chocolate cake.
You've got cake on your mind.
Right. Now, what I get is eggs, flour, milk. I get the ingredients. Right. I know a friend of mine, he manifests, and the thing will pop right up. He manifests a cup of coffee. Someone comes over, would you like a cup of coffee? Right away. Right. When I want a cup of coffee, he says, oh, the coffee maker's over there. There's the stuff. You know what I mean? Spirit makes me or guides me to do the whole process. Because once you are involved in the whole process, you then can teach other people how to do it. Right?
That makes sense.
You gain tools. That's where that old adage, teach a person to fish and you feed him for a lifetime instead of just feeding for the moment. It's that same analogy. And so my life has been about experience, where I'm being pushed, or my sole mission was to experience the things from its inception to its end. Mm-hmm. I don't get the trophy.
I get it.
Right? I have to earn the trophy through all the work. I have to go through all the steps. And other people don't have to do that because they didn't come down with that particular mission. I think my mission came down to be a teacher and to guide and so forth, where others aren't. Some of them are just to be the example of being able to manifest.
Exactly.
So one is not better than the other.
You have to break it down in order to teach it.
Yeah.
So tell me what I'm looking at here. So I see you have 3 decks there.
I do. But before I get into the decks, I just wanted to tell just a little bit about how I began the flute. I mentioned how I learned to do the didge and everything.
Yeah.
And I always loved the flute, the sound of the flute. And when I was in Sedona in 1990, we were with a retreat type thing, group of people, and we would meditate every morning at sunrise on one of the buttes. And one time, it was silent, it was cold, it was about 28 degrees and windy, and we got into the meditation silently, and I kept hearing flute music in the background, Native American flute. And I was really deep at the time, and then it kind of brought me out of the depths of the meditation, so I thought. Well, after the meditation, we were talking, I said, yeah, I was so deep, but when that flute music started playing, that really, it interrupted my meditation, and everybody turned around and said, there was no flute music.
Wow.
And then I started listening to Native American flute music. Mm-hmm. And one of the leaders of the group worked in a store on Long Island called Dreams East, which was a kind of a metaphysical type of store. But that music stayed with me. And then a friend said, I keep seeing you playing on my record when I record, you playing the flute. And I didn't play any instruments at that point in time.
Was that the recorded stuff that I heard? It's like that's the only recorded stuff. Remember you showed me some of your recorded stuff?
I actually don't remember, but
I think it was on Spotify or something.
No, that was my first CD. But what happened was a few years later, when I was playing didge with a friend, we were doing healing. We were doing sound baths with didges. Nice. And again, this was before sound baths were popular. And one of our friends was a didge player, but he also played Native American flute and crystal bowls, and he had a shruti box, and he was kind of the inspiration with that. And just before we were going to record, he quit. And the depth that we were going with the music was so important, but we didn't have the flute anymore or any of the other things. So I literally had bought that one flute, which I never really played. He had showed me how to hold it. So I tried to play it. And I had a little chart with, it shows like a picture of the flute, and where you're supposed to put your fingers, they black out the holes. And I was terrible. I mean, I was my old musical self. And I just wasn't doing it. So I called up another friend who was a flute player, and he said, John, the flute is a hard instrument. And do you know how to hold it? Do you know how to play it? And I said, well, I know how to hold it. Playing it's another story. He says, just close your eyes and play what your heart wants to play. So I just closed my eyes, and I'm sure it didn't sound quite like this, but I just went. And I just let whatever came out to come out. And 2 weeks later, I was on the first CD.
Wow.
And
that's beautiful.
Because it wasn't me playing, I was letting spirit play me, or the flute play me, as opposed to me playing the flute.
It's a wind instrument.
And it's a wind instrument.
So it's very connected, spirit and wind.
Yeah.
In the Hebrew language, the word for spirit and wind are the same.
Yeah.
And it's called ruach, and it's one meaning of also connected to the breath. So the wind instruments have always had a very profound, I don't know, real vibey feeling for me. Like even just this little bit that you just played is very soothing, very comforting. And I think it's super cool that you heard it in your meditation, but it wasn't really there. So it was really wild. That's wild.
Yeah, and the premonition from that friend of mine who never ended up in a rock band or anything like that came true because she kept seeing me playing flute. It just happened to be a different type of flute. The other one was a traditional flute that she was thinking of, and I ended up playing the Native American flute. But the most important thing is that it allowed me to get out of my ego about playing and worry. And I had an opportunity to talk with T. Carlos Nakai. You can look him up. He's a Grammy award-winning Native American flute player. I mean, he's been around for 50, 60 years doing this. And I had a chance to talk to him here in town. He played over the Dome. What is that place called where they have the music in Colorado Springs? I can't think of the name of it, but he said that when you play, Stargazers Theater, he told me that you just play the flute. Flute is a metaphor of life. He goes, if you make a mistake, don't stop playing. Just play through it because life is not perfect. There are mistakes. Nothing flows completely smoothly all the time.
This is good. Like, I hope there's kids that can listen to this, because children want to pick up a musical instruments and they want to be so perfect.
Yeah, and he leaves it in. He doesn't want it edited out. He says, because this is life, and it's coming from the heart. We get broken hearts, we have happy hearts, we have sad hearts, we have numb hearts. He goes, and this is an expression of the heart. And the flutes were first made, they're courting instruments, meaning they were here to get yourself a wife, right? It was generally a male instrument to play. Now it's a universal instrument.
Right. That's
the same with the didgeridoo. The didgeridoo wasn't a courting instrument, but it was a male instrument to play. But society and energies have shifted where it's an invitation to connect with spirit. Like the didgeridoo is both an air instrument and it's also an earth instrument. And they both bring healing qualities.
That was beautiful. Thanks. Peace. We should have one just all flute playing.
Yeah.
It's so soothing.
But this is how the flute started in my life, and this was one of the things. This was the first, what I'd say, real musical instrument that I played. The didgeridoo. Yes, it's a musical instrument, but it's not designed so much as a musical instrument. It has
a different vibe.
Yeah, it's a completely different vibe.
Yeah.
And the drum is known as the heartbeat of Mother Earth and so forth. And that I didn't know I could do drumming. I didn't know I had that ability until, but again, the drum played me. I didn't play the drum. When I let myself go and not worried what I was going to sound like, all of a sudden I was drumming. When I think, I get in my own way. When I just be there, it starts to happen.
That's beautiful.
And that's how I basically do my healing work, my readings. I'm being the instrument of spirit as opposed to me trying to be something.
So you have 3 decks.
I brought 3, yeah. I brought 3. Now the first 2, this one was gifted, but I have another one that's an older version which had less cards in it. And these are the medicine cards. And they have, different pictures of different animals on it. And each animal has its own unique energy. Like in Kung Fu, you have tiger, praying mantis, all these different things. It's same type of thought process between that, is that each one has attributes and energies that are associated with it that can help us.
Right.
And, like this one is the wolf. Now, wolf are pack animals, right? They're very, they take care of each other. And,
that's my spirit animal.
Right. And, this is about community. This is about, a communication too. The howling at the moon isn't that they're sad. They're calling out for other wolves or the pack to communicate with. We got numbers on the top of it. There's a 1 and a 5. They have meanings too, numerologically and also spiritually. I don't always read them numerologically. All right, I get told what to say or what the meaning is for me. Right, and it gives me information like 1 is new beginnings, divinely guided. Right, and one God basically, one spirit, one encompasses all things. That's why it's a divine energy. 5 it's a balanced number. 5 and 6 can be balanced numbers, right? For me, it's also an abundance number, meaning that there's abundance on its way, right? And coming into balance within yourself. And then you add them together. 6 again is a balanced number, but it's also a karmic number. And the way I read this is that when the number 6 shows up, that means they're telling you, stop worrying so much because you've taken care of the big karma. You got little karma that's left. Now, karma only lessons. It's not that you did something wrong. People think, oh, I got karma. Oh, bad. No, it's like you have lessons to learn. You still have lessons that are going to be presented to you to take care of. But you've taken care of the really big stuff. All right? And 6 also represents close relationships with close friends and family members. And the close friends are the ones that you consider like family. And it's about, bringing out, like if you've had a disagreement with someone that you loved, right, and you're no longer talking, they're saying, come, bring this out into the open. Discuss it. What was going on in your life at the time when this incident went on? All right, what was going on in their life? Communicate with them if possible. It's not about mending. It's not about bringing the relationship back together. It's about bringing it to the surface and to the light so it can't fester within any longer, where you're actually having to confront it in a sense and come to terms with it. And if you can come to terms with it and you go, wow, yeah, I was really emotionally compromised at that moment, and the other person said, yeah, this was going on in my life, you may find common ground and forgive each other and united, or you healing yourself.
All that in 6.
All that in the number 6,
awesome.
Right? Then you got the totems that are down on the bottom here. You got the feathers on both sides. For me, when I see feathers on both sides of the medicine shield, that means you're ready for the next challenge. You're ready for the next adventure in your life to rise up. The wings flap, right? Meaning it lifts you up. So you see a bigger perspective. Because if we stay down like mouse in the grass, right? You're only in the microcosm and there's a lot of stuff around you. You can't see really anything, You can't see, the forest for the trees type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's about lifting up and seeing the higher perspective of things, not just what's bothering you, but what is the big message here? Now you got the bear claws on both sides. The bear claws mean introspection, look within, right? Don't judge yourself, but look at the different events that have gone in your life. What can you learn from them? What positive tool can you take forward so you can grow? Because if you stay in the negative, what happens? You don't grow, right? You hide.
What is that, like a starfish?
Yeah, that's a starfish.
So out of place, though, right?
Right. Well, when then this is how I interpret. This is not in a book. This is how Spirit told me to interpret some of these things. Now, anytime you see a stone, something made of stone, it's a reminder to stay grounded, right? So in here, in dead center, it says, stay grounded. Now, the bone represents the structure of the body, right? It supports the body. That tells you, when you see a bone, that you have the physical, emotional, and spiritual structure to handle anything that goes on in your life, right? As long as you stay grounded, you have all the tools that you need for whatever's presented to you. As long as you go with the flow, anything that deals with water animals,
so that's why
and stuff like that. It's a starfish is there as go with the flow. But it also, because it's a star, means that there's going to be attention. You're going to be a center of attention. You may have recognition in some sort of fashion. It could be big recognition. It could be just recognition from your friends saying, you've really helped me. Thank you so much. That type of stuff. Nice job. Little pat in the butt. Good game. Good game. Like I mentioned here, you got the bear claws on both sides. This is about concentrating, about look within. You have the answers, right? Stop beating yourself up. From the higher perspective, from your higher self, look down and say, what tools are available for me? What did I learn from these experiences that may have scarred me? instead of looking at them in a negative, saying, wow, I learned to say no from this. I learned boundaries. And then your perception of that bad experience is softened or sometimes goes away completely because you found the tool that
Now, this card
was
that you
presented, or the
picked
lesson.
up
Yeah.
could be for anyone
Well,
in
this
the room, right?
because I picked it up, yeah,
Yeah.
and this is community. It's about communication, right? Not about division. It's not about my idea is better than yours. My candidate is better than your candidate. Because we're in just finished the election
Right.
season. It's like we are all human beings. We all inhabit this earth, and let's find the common things that we want for this world, not the things that are trying to separate us. So that's like a little example of wolf. Now we'll do one more card here. Now we got the Wolverine. And see this right here? Wolverine's a warrior. Right. It says, you're a lot tougher than you think you are. All right? And generally we don't feel we're tough is because we're getting negative thoughts about ourselves. We're going into our own little pity party. Now, having a pity party is not wrong. It's how long you stay in it that can cause the problems. When you finally recognize, like, yeah, I'm getting down on myself, I'm going to stop that today. Then you've grown. Right? So this is saying you're a lot tougher. So, suck it up.
Let me see
Look
that
at the
Wolverine.
lesson. Yeah. So, and it's about moving forward. There's no challenge that you can't handle. And then the last one here is the Sacred Path cards. And this is the South Shield of number 9. 9 is a number of completion. You're finishing a cycle. You're ready to start a new cycle. So, like the other card, what was a 15? So it's perfect because you got both the one number in there and a number 9. Right? Meaning you have the Alpha, the Omega. You got the beginning, new beginnings divinely God, and you got, why is there new beginnings? Because you completed a cycle. Right? Anytime a number 9 shows up, that's letting you know that whatever you've been going through is coming to an end. Stop dwelling on the negative and look for the opportunities that are showing up for you. All right? And again, they have another wolf. So wolf is here again, and it's a white wolf, so it's a spirit animal. It's meaning you're supported. You got a stone right here, staying grounded. You've got a medicine bundle. Is allow yourself to heal. You're worthy of healing, because sometimes we beat ourselves up because, or we hold on to grief because we feel we did something wrong and we need to suffer to release it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I have to make amends through my suffering. And I know
Some
people
people
who
go there.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people who go there to the point of self-destruction because they feel that they're atoning for a sin, so to speak. And so it's allow yourself to heal. You got the feather dead center here, and it looks more like a turkey feather because it's got the same type of stripes right here. This is a turkey feather, and we'll go over that in a minute too. But the turkey feather represents, what do we have at when we have turkey? It's usually Thanksgiving, right? It's about giving thanks for everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, right? Everything is a teacher. If we look at it, that every experience, no matter what it is, whether it brings joy or heartache, can teach us so valuable and to give thanks for it. Just looking out this thing and I see the snow. Thank you for the snow. Thank you for the blue sky. Thank you for all these different things. And it allows us to, stay in a more balanced state of mind and spirit. And then we got a conch shell. Now the conch shell, it's from the water, means flow, but the conch shell was used by the Hawaiian Islanders, the Maori, the canoe peoples, to communicate over long distances over the ocean because the tones that come out of that shell cut through the white noise of the waves going shh. And they were able to communicate over long distances. So this is about communication, flowing, and having open communication. It's not about judgment. The more we speak with each other and give each other's ideas, the truth starts to expand. What is truly true starts to come out, right? Because if you speak to me about a certain topic that I have resistance to, but I listen to you, that what you're saying is now mixed with what I believe, and then I have to start to investigate it. And then all of a sudden, my perception of how this world works is changed. So that's why we need to communicate with each other a lot. So when the conch shell comes up, it's about making sure that you're communicating what your heart is telling you, not what your mind is. Because our mind can be our worst enemy, right? Because our mind works with data that is being, taught to us in school, what our parents give us, our friends, and so forth, right? So it's a physical process. But our heart and our gut work on the spiritual level. It works on a quantum field of energy. So when you're too much in your head, that means you're not grounded. That's why the stone shows up. Ground yourself, center yourself. You can do hand movements where you center yourself in a martial arts. If you're standing up, go into a horse stance and breathe in, and on the exhale, sink down a little bit. You feel more stable. You feel stronger.
Well, I think the conch shell is really neat. And is this on still? Because it was red screen on me. Okay. Now I'm gonna have to speak up so that your microphone catches me a little bit. But the conch shell is interesting. As I'm going to play a conch shell. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful pink sand quartz beaches in the world, and it got that name from all the conch shells. And I was thinking about what you were saying about how they would communicate through the white noise. I'm gonna have to go ahead and collect myself some conch shells and bring them back, because I think that's a really cool symbolism for all of us and all the white noise that's going on, like in our heads, in our community, in our society, and to be able to break through all of that. I like the symbolism. I was kind of like almost physically thrown back when you pulled those cards, because on one shamanic journey that I did with you, we were in this world, and for those of you that listening, we were in this world. Because what that means is when you do a shamanic journey, you're actually traveling to a couple of different levels.
All right.
But in this here and now presence, I was surrounded by all these white wokes, and they had their backs to me and their faces out, so it's protecting me. Our time is running up, and we could talk forever, but we have to close. So this was absolutely fascinating, and I want to give you the opportunity to tell people where they can find you, how they can work with you, what you have coming up. It's been such a privilege to sit with you in this situation. You have so much to give and so much to offer, and I'm kind of spoiled because you're one of my closest friends, and I get to spend a lot of time with you. But you read so beautifully, and there's so much more magic to what John does. He does feather clearing. I can't even begin to tell you the experiences I've had on his table. It's just been next level, where auditory things come in, and what scent was that? And he goes, what are you talking about? And all the different things. So please tell everyone how they can find you, where they can work with you, how they can work with you, etc.
Well, on Facebook, you just go to John Thunderheart Robinson or the Inner Light Center. Also, my website, theinnerlightweb.com. Email innerlightcenterofco@msn.com. There's a
Do your readings?
Well, I do my readings at the Inner Light Center, and I also do them at Celebration Metaphysical Center. I've been doing readings since I was pretty much like 19 years old, and you see I got gray hair now, so it's quite a while ago.
I'd love to get you to do some readings here at the Treehouse. I bet that would be really fun for a lot of people. Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to give a special shout out to our videographer, Drew, who has gone a little over and above today to be here for an extended period. And we are podcasting today from the Treehouse Cafe, Colorado Springs. It is my favorite local place to be. A lot of great stuff going on here. I absolutely cannot tell you all the things that are on the calendar because they're so extensive. And I hope that on that calendar, we'll be seeing John Thunderheart Robinson and some of your offerings here. This has become a real gathering place for the healing community and people in this community. And I want to thank you for being here and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.